Hello, this is Daisy Joy at Adventure Acres, and I thought I would take a moment to paint you a picture of rural homestead life. The lady of the homestead is, of course, wearing garments that she's probably sewn by hand, and her pantry is like a jewel box of gems, canned goods lined up, mason jars, shiny and colorful, with all of the produce from her meticulously manicured garden, canned by her own hands, waiting to be used, everything organic and pretty. She's probably wiping her hands on her apron before she places a made-from-scratch apple pie into the oven. Cinnamony aroma wafting through the house, and her children, no doubt, on their way to the chicken coop, skipping with their baskets to go collect eggs. The family dairy cow is munching on buttercups in the sprawling pasture, and nothing ever goes wrong because it's the homestead, the most wholesome and beautiful sort of lifestyle that you could ever dream of. It's the whole package, and it's beautiful. No, that's not what it's like, people. Seriously, I was in the checkout this afternoon, and I saw a magazine, and it was pitching this whole idea of sort of Mary Poppins meets Martha Stewart meets pioneer woman Laura Ingalls baked goods and perfect picket fences. And I was looking at it and thinking, this is not what my life looks like. This is a sham. This is propaganda, people. What the chicken? No. Homestead life is often not very pretty. I mean, there are definitely things about it that I love and that are very amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's not this perfect package of scenic wonderfulness and beauty. You know, there's a lot of hard things about homestead life that a lot of people don't talk about. You know, people have their Instagram pictures of perfect meals at the stove, and I can't help but wonder, is their kitchen really that clean, or is that just like the little part of their kitchen that's clean that they're taking their pictures at? You guys know what I'm talking about, don't you? Are there other YouTubers out there who are willing to admit this? I will admit it. I have taken pictures of my food before in like the one little corner of my kitchen that doesn't look like a disaster, because I'm like, yay, look, I made beautiful food. My kitchen is a flipping mess, but look at how pretty my food is. I will admit that because I love you guys enough to tell you it's not all pretty. Your kitchen isn't always going to be beautiful. It's not going to always look like Mary Poppins has whistled her little tune and everything starts cleaning itself. That is not what homestead life is like. There's a lot of balancing. There's a lot of prioritizing. I think one of the most common things that I've heard from homesteaders is how difficult it is to manage homestead life with homemaking. Amy Fuel has a group about homestead homemaking, and I've heard I'm living it myself. You know, I understand it's hard to find a balance. It's not Better Homes and Gardens. It's hang in there right now because it's a little rough. There's a lot of things that you don't know about when you're going into homesteading, and you're learning it as you go. I mean, even if you do all the research and, you know, think you're completely ahead of the game and you know what you're doing before you get into it, that will not always be the case. A lot of times you learn more from experience than you can from information from other people, and you just have to kind of roll with it. You aren't always going to know what homestead life looks like. It's tricky like that. You could be going along and everything could be fine, and then one of your animals, you wake up the next day and they didn't. And that's hard. And it's not pretty. It's not pleasant. It's tough. It's sucky, if I may say such things. But you don't always know what it's going to be like, and only experience will teach you those things. And I think that there's kind of a disconnect when it comes to reality, because everybody wants to put their prettiest foot forward. And I could show you my, okay, here, I'm doing something radical here. What? There's stuff on my table? Messy stuff? Oh my gosh. That's horrifying. No, really. Our lives are not always pretty. They're not always picturesque. We do have messes that happen. And we may not always want to share that, but it does happen. It's real life. It's okay to have real life. It's okay to have mess and have everything be a little bit crazy sometimes. I think I was at Bible study tonight, and we were talking about how it's sometimes important for people to know that you're a real person and that you're vulnerable and that you struggle with things, because there's so many people who are willing to present the side of them that has it all together. And I think it's helpful when we can show people that we don't have it all together. We don't have it all figured out. Sometimes we're just rolling with it. When I talked to my MS doctor one time, he was explaining that he had a patient, and with multiple sclerosis, if you overheat, it can cause something called pseudo-exacerbations, where you have symptoms because you've gotten too hot. And one of his patients is a runner, and he loves running. And when he got MS, it made running difficult, because when he would run, he would go blind in his eye. He would not be able to see out of his right eye when he was running. But wouldn't you know it, he still runs. But whenever he runs, he goes blind for a little while. But he loves running, so he just does it. And I was thinking about how powerful an example that is, that you don't always know what's going to happen, but you run with it. You chase after it. Even when you may not be able to see where you're going, like literally in that case, you just go with it, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have the picturesque, perfect version of what a homestead is like, especially not when you're starting out. Over time it may improve, it may be better, but especially when you're starting out, it's not always pretty. It's not always manicured and polished. And yeah, I do have apple pies in my oven made from scratch, and I do have really beautiful moments of life here, but it's not always that way. And I think it's important to share that with you guys. So here I am, super real. Messy table. Real life. I want to encourage anybody out there who's starting off, start where you're at. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to make progress. This is Daisy Joy, signing off for now.